Alright, well I figured I should make this video. Maybe I should have made a video earlier when Steve Wilks got fired by the 49ers. Steve Wilks was the defensive coordinator for a season for the 49ers. They've had multiple defensive coordinators get head coaching jobs in the past, but now they're firing one after losing in the Super Bowl. And I do think it's fair to call into question some of the play calling that happened down the stretch. Play calling was, for the most part working for the large majority of the game. It was really the final two drives I think the criticism really came in. And you might say that's unfair. They, he was good for 90% of the game. At the same time, though, it was the last 10% where they kind of lost the game. So, yeah, let's just get into it. So first, we saw, they were playing some zone, which is what they did all season long. And while it was working at points earlier in the game, the reality is the Chiefs are really good at beating zone. And while it took them a minute in this game to figure out exactly how to do it, they were kind of figuring out how to do it down the stretch. Like a concept like this, designed to scheme up a way for Kelce to get open. As you see when this play begins, you see Kelce is open right here. You do have to wonder if Dre Greenlaw is out there. Does this get covered up a little bit better? Perhaps. I do think that, attacking where Greenlaw's backup is in was a smart strategy by Kansas City. Either way, Mahomes is going to hit Kelce. Kelce picks up the first down right there. Actually, he was ruled down just short of the first down. But regardless, picks up an easy chunk play. So I think that this is why Wilks kind of said, okay, this isn't really working. So he went into a very heavy blitz scenario. In fact, here he's going to go with a full all-out blitz on this spot, which he did earlier and it worked, but not a lot. He did like one time earlier and it worked. So going for it again, which I can understand the logic behind, especially when the Chiefs are so close to the first down marker. You almost want to get a big play here. If you can get a sack or if you can get a turnover, the games might be over. Would be over if a turnover, might be over with a sack. I get the logic, and there's the added factor of if you give up a long touchdown on this play, well, that actually isn't the complete worst case scenario. It's not ideal, but you would still then have about a minute left and 2 timeouts to try and score a touchdown of your own. There would at least be a chance. However, here, though, you're going to see Mahomes, just simply flips underneath because, again, due to kind of the cover zero, a lot of times you have the players who are in coverage play further off because you don't want to give up that long touchdown. So because of that, kind of gives you a free, amount of yards, which is, I think, something that we then saw them on this 3rd down and 2 situation. Again, they're showing all-out blitz. They're showing pressure. And Kansas City, one of the things that they really had down at the end of the game was a feel for what coverages they were going to be going up against. Watch as you're going to see Mahomes. He's going to flip the ball to a halfback who picks up the first down right here. That was on a 3rd down and 2, which, I don't know. Do the Chiefs try a long field goal from there if they don't pick it up? I don't know what they do. You would at least love the 4th down opportunity if you're San Francisco. And again, even if they tried a long field goal and hit it, well, then maybe you're in a situation where, you have 35 seconds left, a couple timeouts, only needing a field goal to win. But okay, fine. You tried that. It wasn't really working. But, here's where things get a little bit weird. So this play is kind of a good example of what the Niners were doing all game and was working all game. Not saying they were doing this every play, but when they were doing this earlier on in the game, it was working. It's a cover 1 man play of, hey, the Chiefs actually aren't great at winning on the outside. This is the coverage you used to never play against Mahomes because of, him and Tyreek Hill would basically always get a 50-yard touchdown when you do this. But with the Chiefs' kind of lack of a great outside receiver, this coverage has become more and more, well done, more and more effective. Now, the issue is there's Kelce you have to worry about. However, on this play, Mahomes is going to look towards Kelce, and Fred Warner is just, making a ton of contact at the line, not allowing Kelce to get much going, so Mahomes has to figure something else out. Mahomes decides to scramble, and he ends up getting tackled for only a couple of yards, and this kind of killed their opportunity to score a touchdown on this drive. They, were hopeful, hey, maybe we can get a touchdown here, but with just 1 timeout left, they don't burn it. It actually eventually created this scenario, which is also, I think, worth talking about. Pay no attention to the lines on the screen. That's what Romo was drawing, but now pay attention to these lines on the screen, the ones that I drew. And here's another issue, though, is so they tried doing this. Okay, cover 1 man. This is a good coverage. This is working. But when you only have one coverage that's really working, well, then the Chiefs can do what you see on the screen, which is just running a rub route here to get Kelce open. It's a 1-on-1 matchup against Fred Warner. However, when this play begins, you see there's a Kansas City player who's kind of in the way of Fred Warner. And if you're Fred Warner, it's kind of one of those tough situations where you could decide to just run forward and run into the Kansas City player, because if you do that, well, then you could get the flag, which might have been worth it, honestly, given where they were on the field. The issue, though, is, of course, if you do that and you don't get the flag, well, then, you might be in trouble. You might give up a touchdown. That's not a good situation. So he's going to try and just get around it. As you see, that's kind of what he does. And really, I think Noah Gray did a good job at avoiding Warner at the last second as well. But because of this, they pick up a big chunk play. Didn't matter. They didn't score a touchdown, whatever. But again, just something to put a pin in for the next drive. I think this kind of scared off the 49ers from running this coverage, even though it was the coverage that was probably the most effective down the stretch at stopping Kansas City. And then this sequence was kind of what got Wilks fired. And you could argue it's what cost the 49ers the Super Bowl here. So, I don't have to show what's on the screen because Tony Romo's doing it for me. He's circling, again, all those 49ers players who are very far deep. It's a 2nd down and 14, so you can kind of understand the logic. Hey, let's not give up anything, down the field if they get 7 yards or whatever. Well, now we have a 3rd down situation. The issue is, again, this is essentially 1st down and 14, right? Like, you're not going to punt the football away and just lose the game. It's 4-down territory here. So Mahomes is going to, simply flip the ball to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. Kind of got to give Mahomes credit, actually, for that, to go right back to MVS after MVS had that disastrous play where, the only reason it's a 2nd and 14 is because MVS ran like 10 yards backwards on the previous play, but, goes right back to him. They trust him. He's able to pick up some yards, and they kind of just gave him that amount of yards. And again, you then would have a 3rd and 6 situation. And one thing I talked about earlier was, it just felt like the Chiefs knew what the 49ers were doing. They kind of knew going in, hey, might be a cover 0 here. Like, they felt pretty good about that. And again, as of right now, it's clearly a cover 0. That's what the 49ers are showing, at least, man coverage of some kind. You don't know if it's cover 0, although we know that it is cover 0. And is this coverage the right call? Well, again, it kind of feels like if everyone can just win their one-on-one matchups on the outside, you should be okay. But you do just have to wonder, is this the right mindset of kind of tipping your cards and showing your hand here? Because, again, you see that they have that kind of rub route scenario. They're able to flip it to Rashee Rice. Rashee Rice picks up the 1st down, and we all know what would happen. The Chiefs would go on to win the game. So is it fair to blame Steve Wilks for this? Well, there's some things that, at the end of the day, my kind of general philosophy on this stuff is you can't just run one coverage all the time. Even if one coverage is working at, its best, you can't just do that because guys like Mahomes will realize it. Guys like Andy Reid will realize it and dial up stuff like this. So you can't just do that. At the same time, when down the stretch, it feels like you consistently ran a certain play call that wasn't really working, and even Kyle Shanahan at one point called a timeout to make sure that they didn't run another cover 0 at a certain point in overtime, which is something you never see. Things like that, it leaves a sour taste in your mouth. And when you're losing while not playing your best coverage, that leaves a sour taste in your mouth as well. Again, what they were doing before those first 2 drives had worked. They hadn't given up a long drive for a touchdown the entire game. I mean, the first touchdown drive the Chiefs had was in overtime. Their only other touchdown was a 1-play drive. At the same time, though, when I'm watching these plays, I can't help but think, like, okay, they tried a bunch of different stuff, and the Chiefs were just ready for everything they were trying. So, like, I want to sit here and say, like, well, this coverage probably would have been better. At the same time, when the Chiefs beat that coverage as well. So who's to say they wouldn't have beaten that one if the 49ers had ran it more frequently? So at the end of the day, I think it's fair to say that at the end of the day, it didn't work. Like, that's totally reasonable to say. The fact that the Chiefs were ready for what the Niners were doing so much down the stretch is still a fair criticism. I don't know if I would sit here and say, like, I certainly wouldn't say it's all his fault or anything like that, but I don't really have an issue with trying to find an upgrade either. That's kind of how I view all of that. But yeah, that's what I think. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.